If you want to get a nonfiction book traditionally published, you need a book proposal. This takes the place of the cover letter and synopsis you would use if you were pitching a fiction book. So today I want to talk about how to write an attractive nonfiction book proposal. Nonfiction publishers want to know about your platform and expertise, as well as see a writing sample. In order to make your nonfiction book proposal attractive to agents and editors, you need to understand what each piece is designed to show and make sure you are allowing that piece of the proposal to show that aspect. This is Ignited Ink Writing, a channel dedicated to helping authors like you transform your writing so it lingers with your readers, because writing that lingers gets remembered and recommended to others. I'm Caitlin Burvey, editor and writer. Let's start with what a nonfiction book proposal does. A nonfiction book proposal is not a summary of your book. Really, at the end of the day, it is a plan to treat your book as a product. That means you are a business. You and your book are a business. Most of a nonfiction book proposal is about your target market, your platform, why you're the best person to write this book, and that there is a place in the market for your title. All of these things have less to do with the writing and more to do with will your book sell. That's what your nonfiction proposal is proving. Also, be aware that people read nonfiction to make a change in their lives. So your proposal needs to show this. What change do you help your readers make? How do you help them reach a burning desire or overcome a pain point? Those are points you want to hit in your proposal. As you're crafting your proposal, think of it as a marketing tool. Use it to find the best ways to get your book in the hands of your target readers. If you do this and do it well, then you will have the best chance at gaining an agent and publisher. And even if that doesn't work out, you can now use your proposal and its marketing plan to self-publish and be successful that way. The plus side of the sales focus for your nonfiction book proposal is you don't actually have to write your book before you get it sold or picked up by an agent or publisher. This is very different than fiction and in some cases memoir, where you have to have the entire book written and ready to go. You don't have to do that with nonfiction. All you need is this proposal. So it's a little bit of a different approach to getting a book published. Now that you understand what a nonfiction book proposal is meant to be, let's talk about components of nonfiction book proposals. Before you dive into each section of your proposal, remind yourself what that section is intended to do. What is it showing about your book or about your marketing plan to help you land an agent or publisher? As you're writing, keep the purpose of that section in mind. Now let's go over those purposes. The first part of your nonfiction book proposal is the overview. This is your hook. If you don't make your book sound exciting, revolutionary, thought-provoking, or different here, an agent or publisher probably won't read the rest of your nonfiction book proposal. So treat your hook like a hook. Also think of it like your back cover copy. In your hook, you should have not only what your book is about, but also who the target reader is and what it promises them. How will it help them achieve their burning desire or overcome their pain point? Then after your overview is where you introduce your target market or audience. So do not say that your target reader is everyone. No one's target reader is everyone. That is a straight up lie. Your target reader is probably not an 80-year-old man and an 8-year-old kid. It's just not a thing. Also, when you claim that your target reader is everyone, it's a huge turnoff as an agent, publisher, or even an editor. It kind of says you're lazy and that you're not willing to put in the work to figure out who would actually want to read your book. So do not say that. What you do want to do is research who might want to buy your book. If you're writing about model planes, share the statistics as to how many model plane enthusiasts there are out there. Also, let the agent or publisher know what age group your book targets. you should have a specific person or type of person in mind here. This is similar to a business's ideal customer. Who is your ideal book reader? What your target market or target audience does is it shows there is a market for your book, that there are people to sell your book to. If you can't come up with something to put here, that means there might not be a market for your book. And an agent or publisher is not going to try and create a market for your book. The market either already exists or they don't want your book. So after your target audience section is your author bio. Now, your author bio is not really about you. It's about why you are the best person to write this book. So you want to focus on how you're an expert in your field. You want to focus on your education in that area, any experiences you might have, any related awards you've won, connections to that industry, those types of things. You do not want to talk about your fur babies or that eclectic hobby you have that makes you different. This is not the author bio that goes on your book. This is an author bio designed to convince an agent or publisher why you should be the person to write this book. Other things you might mention in this section are speaking engagements and your platforms, or you might save that for the next part. After your author bio is where your marketing plan comes in. This is where you want to get really specific. What I mean by specific is you want to include a timeline along with the specific places you are going to market your book. So if you have connections to a podcast, a TV show, news outlet, something like that, blogs, anything along those lines, you don't just want to say you will appear there. You want to say roughly when they can expect that appearance to occur. Then you want to mention your email list. You should have an email list. You want to talk about how many people are on it and how active they are. So you can mention things like open rates here or how many people respond to each of your emails, that type of a thing. You want to show not only that you have a large list, but that you have a warm list. Warm means people are actively interacting with you, that it's not just people who are ignoring your emails. You can also mention things like social media or a blog following here, but only mention that if it's impressive. So if you have 300 Twitter followers, do not mention you have a Twitter. But if you have 300,000 Twitter followers and you get regular engagement from them, definitely mention that. I will say an email list matters more than a social media following because you own your email list. Those are people who basically said, yes, please market to me. Please let me know when your book comes out. It's not the same for your social media. And of course, mention any speaking engagements or teaching or things like that that you do. Your marketing plan is about what you will do, not what you might do, not what you will try to do, but what you will do to market your book, to help your agent or publisher sell it. And again, if you really dive in and try here, this part will be useful even if you don't go the traditional publishing route. After your marketing plan is your competitive title analysis. So you want to pick 5 to 10 books to compare your book to. These are books that yours might appear next to on a shelf in a bookstore. First, you want to give the agent or publisher the information they need to look up that book. That's going to be the author, the title, the publisher, the ISBN number, that sort of a thing. Then very quickly summarize each book. We're talking less than 200 words here. Next, you're going to share how your book is different, how it addresses a different aspect of that area of expertise than the other books, how to expand somewhere, how your book is going to stand out from the others, why someone might pick your book over those. Now you have to be careful here. You don't want to criticize or put down those other books because your agent might have represented that author at one time. Your publisher might have bid on that other book and lost the bid and someone else got to publish it. So you don't want to be putting these books down or criticizing them. You just want to show how your book is different and needed in the industry. Now, these comparative titles need to be current. Do not, under any circumstances, compare your book to one that is no longer in print. Basically, when you do that, you're comparing your book to one that failed. Don't do that. Also, by current, I mean that those books were published in the last 5 years. In the writing industry, if it's more than 5 years old, it's not current. So that's how you want to approach your comparative title analysis. Finally, we get to the point where you actually get to share some of your book. Next is where you submit the table of contents or your chapter outlines. In this section, you want to provide a brief summary, 1 to 2 paragraphs, of what your chapters are going to be about. Now remember, you're trying to show that your book has a target audience and will deliver on its promises here. So make sure in those brief descriptions, you include how that chapter is going to help your target reader and how it's going to deliver on the promises you've made. Also remember that your agent or publisher is not likely to be an expert in your field, so keep your field-specific terminology to a minimum. You're pitching this to people who don't know as much about your industry. Now, your book might be for people in your industry, so your book might use more of that terminology, but that does not go here. That goes in the next part, which is your sample chapters. You want to choose sample chapters that are the best parts of your book. This is where you have the best writing. This is where you are fully delivering the promises you make to your reader. They're showing how you're going to help them overcome their pain points or reach their burning desires. And it's going to show how your book is unique. So anything that you mentioned earlier in the proposal, anything like maybe you're saying you approach your subject matter in a humorous way, which will make it less dry than other books in the field, you need to pick a chapter that shows that. This is about showing that you can deliver what you're promising that agent and editor. So your sample chapters should be the best part of your book. They should be the part that delivers on those promises. Those are the parts of your nonfiction book proposal. Let's go over them again really quickly. First is your overview. That's your hook. Next is your target market. This should be very specific. Then you have your author bio, which is really why you're the best person to write your book. Then you have your marketing plan. Don't skimp here. It's useful regardless of whether or not you traditionally publish. Then are your competitive titles that should be less than 5 years old and not critical. You have your chapter outline or table of contents, which are your summaries. And then you have your sample chapters. So those are the components of a nonfiction book proposal and what each section is intended to show an agent or publisher. Keep that in mind when you're writing them. I have linked to an example of a nonfiction book proposal in the comments, so you can check that out there. Next, I want to share final thoughts on nonfiction book proposals from an editor. Anytime you're submitting a piece of writing for publication, you need to read that publication's guidelines very carefully. This is particularly important if you're pitching a narrative nonfiction book. This is something like a memoir. Some agents and publishers treat narrative nonfiction like fiction. That means that you have to have actually written your whole book, and that you're going to provide sample chapters as well as a query letter and synopsis. They don't want the book proposal. Other agents and publishers treat narrative nonfiction like other types of nonfiction, so they do want a book proposal and you don't have to have your book written. Then other people treat it as something in between, and they want pieces of both when you're pitching narrative nonfiction. So really read those guidelines carefully. Also, if you're pitching something like memoir and they do want a nonfiction book proposal, your sample chapters need to be the first few chapters of your book. In that way, it is always like fiction. So that's how narrative nonfiction can be a little bit different when it comes to pitching to agents and publishers. If you do need a nonfiction book proposal for your book, remember that this is a big undertaking. It's not something you're going to finish in one day. This is going to take a little while to put together. By the end, your proposal is likely going to be somewhere between 30 and 50 pages. So take your time on it. I recommend tackling 1 to 2 sections a week and spacing them out. This will give you plenty of time to really do them well. And as you're crafting your book proposal, remember its purpose. Yes, it's a little bit about what your book is about, but more than that, it's proving that there is a market for your book, that it will sell. It's worth an agent or publisher's time. So, what topic is your nonfiction book about? Share it in the comments below. And for more videos on getting published and other aspects of writing, subscribe to Ignited Ink Writing, a channel dedicated to helping authors like you transform your writing so it lingers with your readers. Because writing that lingers gets remembered and recommended to others. I'm Caitlin Burvey, editor and writer. To find out more about me, go to www.ignitedinkwriting.com. There you will also find a submission checklist. This will make sure that you do include all of those pieces in your nonfiction book proposal. And if you're submitting to literary magazines or a fiction novel, it has those checklists as well. And now it's your turn to craft a nonfiction book proposal that not only shows what your book is about and how it will help your readers, but that there is a market for your book and it will sell, to make your proposal attractive to agents and publishers and ignite your ink.